Listen to this short extract of my conversation with Hamish, where we discuss our approaches for using prototypes to ideate solutions and clarify requirements. So you say you're using Miro, I think?
Yeah, use that a lot. I think for me, I mean, I like to have Miro as a board. I might, if it's going to be a model-driven app, I'll actually start building that app out so they can actually see what does the navigation look like, what do the forms look like, and then just add screenshots onto Miro or whatever, or Figma, or whatever you're using.
Yeah.
And then when you're reviewing that visualization with the client, I'll be using little sticky notes and putting sticky notes, as they're commenting and making notes on it and giving feedback, I'll put sticky notes overlapping the prototype as they get feedback, and then they can see, Hamish is listening to them, they're being listened to, and it just kind of helps us all bring us onto the same page, which I think, you talk a lot about being aligned and having the same understanding, right? And I think something like that, prototyping in that way, is a great way to get started, right? And that's, I think you talk about prototyping, it's I guess the different scales of it, right? Is from very low fidelity, which is pretty much sketches and those sorts of things, all the way up to an app that you can actually hold in your hand and use. And I think the Power Platform is just a perfect product to use for prototyping, because you can get those physical handheld apps, or whether it's on your laptop or on your phone, up and running fairly quickly to get that feedback.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Look, I think, so personally, right, I really use, like I said, I consider prototyping, even in my project discoveries, right? It's a big part of the project discovery. Once we understand a bit what are the goals, the objectives, and the key requirements, the key challenges we need to solve, is the next step is going into kind of prototyping, whether it's a model-driven app or just an idea of an app in general, because sometimes it's not only a model-driven app, right? You can use other tools, even in the Microsoft ecosystem, right? Like SharePoint, even like Outlook, right? Is part of the tool set we use, right? So, kind of prototyping a bit the scenarios and the possible solutions, right, that you want to have, and it can be as simple as spinning a model-driven app and just moving a few fields to a little bit more complex. Like, I had scenarios where I had product owners very, very demanding in terms of UI elements and how, specific features would work. And because of the nature of the end client, who was apparently the end client was a bit less tech savvy, so we needed to have very easy to use UI and so forth. So effectively what I did for another project is I had a model driven app, and within I had an iframe pointing to Figma design, right? And that Figma design was interactive as well. So we spent a bit of time modeling that Figma design to have that ease of use, that if the user would click and open the record, they could very quickly see that visual of the extra information they needed and interact with it. So that was quite interesting in terms of, just go to which level of prototyping we can go. And we didn't even choose the technology of that app, right? It could be a PCF, it could have been, a Canvas app, it could have been a report even, maybe. We were thinking maybe a Power BI paginated report could have. So we didn't go that far, but we just wanted to make sure that we got the requirements right and what was expected.
Yeah, and I think and this is where I kind of see design thinking and prototypes, coming into business applications a lot more. Because previously with dynamics and model-driven apps, you're quite restricted to what you can do, right? You get what you get, and you've got some fields on a form, and you've got some columns and a view. Whereas now we've got custom pages, you can embed Power BI reports, you've got PCF controls, and I think, I do see people do struggle a little bit with how do we start with this blank canvas, a canvas app, and build up an app. And I think it's not being mean to Microsoft, but we kind of started probably on the wrong foot in terms of UI and design, right? You've got all these canvas apps out there that are pretty ugly looking, to be honest, a lot of them, and you can tell that this is a canvas app because of the way the controls went set up. But I really like the way Microsoft are going now with the Fluent UI design framework, trying to make canvas components that are that fit in with that. And I think the Power Apps Creator Kit is an awesome tool, but you still then need to, I think you still need to do these prototypes and put together these kind of custom UI components in front of the client and get them to see it. Because I think the other day I mocked up a screen. It was pretty ugly. I did it in Miro, and I kind of expected the developer would put, I said, put the Creator Kit components on top and make it look like Dynamics. But he did exactly what I'd done on the Miro board, and it was hideous, very ugly. So it kind of taught me that I need, when you, depending on who you're working with, when you're making these prototypes, you make them look as close to the real thing. Because even the client as well who we're working with couldn't quite, get from this is what, the concept all the way through to this is the fairy and so that's what we want to look like. So we went through quite a few iterations of that prototype. And I got it looking like almost exactly like we wanted to, but then it was easier for the developer to go away and build that. But a few lessons learned there around prototyping. I think gives a good understanding of your audience and who's going to be using it as well. Yeah, it's so true. I mean, especially on workshops, sometimes it's kind of remind me of the same thing that happened to me lately, right? So even a few weeks ago, I was presenting a prototype to a client, and some of the members of the audience, because so the prototype was supposed to present the concept of the ideas where we're going. So the text must not really align, or so I was showing a form and then a subgrid that could have elements, and that subgrid, I was saying that could be related to the record you are opening, right? But because the label and the example I didn't really speak to that audience, I prepared, so I had different audiences, 2 teams, and I presented to one team that got it because it was exactly aligned to what they needed. But I reused the same concept for another team, but not renaming the title of the subgrid and the example. And they were still a little bit lost in, but why are you presenting like this? Why presenting this entity for us or this subgrid? We don't need that. And I was trying to explain, I know you don't need that, but understand the concept. I know you need this. It will look exactly like that, but but sometimes it taught me the lessons, maybe even the prototype sometimes, because they are so easy to customize. Maybe you have 2 different versions of prototypes, just changing the labeling it makes such a big difference for some of the, some of your stakeholders, right? To understand what you're talking about. Yeah, I agree. I think I've definitely learned a lesson recently around, when you're prototyping, because prototypes are meant to be quick, messy, set your starter right to help visualize, but sometimes it is better to spend that kind of extra half hour on getting certain elements, especially around, I guess, wording, the name of this label or the wording, and using your client or your audience's language that they use makes a massive difference. That gets people caught up quite a lot, I find. So and again, I mean, this comes, and this is why I love design thinking about this. All comes back to this whole, showing empathy and understanding who your audience is. It pays dividends, right, in terms of how you engage with your clients and how you act as a consultant.